Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I have a really fun interactive card. I think this will be great for any friends that you have that have children that like to play video games. I am 47 and I love video games, so I would totally love this card, which is why I bought this stamp set. But the inside has the old Nintendo controller. This is one of my favorites. I've designed this as Xbox controller. I don't play Xbox because that is actually too new of a video game system for me. I don't really like it, and I'm talking about like the very first Xbox this is kind of designed after. Could also technically be PlayStation. I do play one PlayStation game, but you're like, okay, TMI, Rach. But anyway, the original games are my favorite. So this is a really fun card that I created, this design, and I actually use this as a wobbler. So you can see these are wobblers. You can get these at pretty much any craft store. You can also get them on Amazon. What I'll do is I will look and find a link for these, but you get a lot of them in a package. I've made tons of cards with these. Everyone in club used these, and I still have plenty left over. So they're pretty simple. They do come in different sizes though. This one is a nice size though because it's kind of small enough that you could fit it under lots of different projects. So these are about 3/4 of an inch. So they have two ends to them, just as a FYI. Now, I don't know if this is or isn't true, but I will tell you that apparently there is a lighter end and there's kind of more a sturdier end. If you put the sturdier end on the top thing that wobbles, it supposedly makes your thing wobble a little bit more. If you don't necessarily have these, you could also use dimensionals, but honestly, I think you can use either side. So I'm just going to get one of those out. One other thing I wanted to show you on this, it does have a lot of detail with the heat embossing here, and I actually just use clear embossing powder. But I want to show you something in case you might have missed this in the catalog. So up here, and there you go, make for it to focus, number 7, this is actually an embossing additions toolkit. So this comes with the embossing buddy. There is also a pair of reverse tweezers. I have these reverse tweezers that I got a really long time ago on Amazon, but it has those. It has a little brush, and then it has a little collection device. Now, personally, if you've ever watched me before, you know I'm a big fan of using coffee filters. They also have these ones that are like the little hot dog wrapper sleeves, and they're actually nicer because they don't have this extra part here, so they're kind of more shaped like this, and then they fold in. They empty a lot easier, but you can also get these at the dollar store, and I do reuse them over and over again unless something really gets kind of grossed up. That's about the only time I'll get a new one. You also need Versamark ink for this because that is what makes the embossing powder. You can see how old this one is, but that's what makes the embossing powder stick. And then you also do need a heat tool, which is here. So you can, Stampin' Ups has a two heat setting one. I also have gotten one prior to that at like Michael's or something like that eons ago before I bought the Stampin' Up version. So any heat tool, you cannot use a hairdryer. You definitely have to have something that produces high heat with a tip to it, which basically melts it. And then the other thing you need are embossing powders. So they are selling them now in little groupings. So there is black, white, and clear, or they're metallics, copper, gold, and silver. So you can see what they look like right there. But so it's probably black, white, and clear up here. Oops, I realized I was out of frame. Sorry, black, white, and clear. So you do need those, and those heat set. So clear, the cool part about clear is you can use that with any color, and it takes on the color of the cardstock underneath of it, which is really awesome. So I could have used black, but just trying to show people how versatile it is to have clear is kind of one of the goals that I have. So if you haven't checked out this page, this is page 136. This is what the new annual catalog looks like. So if you don't have a demonstrator and you need one, please let me know. Send me an email. I'll be happy to send you one. But if you already have a demonstrator, they should have sent you one, or you can request a copy from them because we do have to pay for them and pay for mailing them out. So I'm happy to send you one though if you don't have a demonstrator. This also is the Versamark ink. This is what you need to be able to do the heat setting. This is a pigment. This isn't pigment. This is, I believe it's like a glycerin pigment, so it stays wet longer. It's a very, very sticky ink. So you can't really emboss with Memento or StazOn because they dry too quickly. There are also many other types of embossing inks that you can use for heat embossing as well. We just don't happen to carry a lot of them. So the other thing I used is the Basics twine pack, and I'll show you this right here for our cord. If you didn't want to do this, you could just do what I did on the inside, and I just used my Stampin' Rate marker to draw a little line there. So let's get started, and I'll show you what we're going to do today. I forgot I have one more little piece that I need to grab. just need a little scrap piece. Pretty sure that works for my, for my second controller that's on the inside. So this card for me was really fun to create because I really like doing these types of things. So we also use some watercolor pencils to color in on the black because it really makes it stick out super well. So what we're going to do first is we're going to begin by doing the embossing because we will need to trim that out with paper snips. So we'll do this part first and then we'll go from there. It's not really a complicated card, but just has a couple steps. So I'm using my embossing buddy just to cut down on the static. It has been especially dry here in Maryland recently. We actually have rain today. We had rain the other day, but we have not had rain prior to that for about 2 weeks. All the lawns and everything were just, it was really, really sad. All right, so I have my coffee filter ready. And then when you have a large image like this, what I like to do is actually put it down and put the Versamark on it. Okay, and I'm going to just do 2 of these because I'll need another one for later. We'll only cut one of them out. So you can see it gives you like that, almost like a, oh, what do you call it? Like it's a watermark. Words are hard sometimes. A watermark onto it. And then what you'll do is pour the embossing powder over top of it. You do want to make sure if you let this sit out, it will really attract dust. So you'll make sure you clean that off. That is probably one of the most important things when you're working with Versamark, is to make sure you very thoroughly clean your stamp. They do also sell a Versamark ink refill for your pad. So just gonna flick that so you can see what it looks like. So that's all of the Versamark is there. And then I like to give it a good flick with my thumb just to loosen anything up. I'm going to set this on the side. I'm going to just funnel this back in here. That's probably why I like my flat, well-loved coffee filters, because they bend really easily. So let me just scoot these out of the way. And this is the heat tool. So it does have 2 settings. So I'm just going to give this a minute to heat up. So it does get extremely hot here at the tip. I mean, so much so that it will burn your hand if you hold it there. So what you're going to do is just move this over. And once I get a part that's melted, I'll show you what I mean, because you can totally tell the difference. Okay. So just to stop and show you. So this part is melted. So you can see it's shiny, black and shiny. And then this part here is still dried powder. So you want it to get to this shiny portion here, but you don't want to heat it too long. So you want to keep this moving the whole time. So I'm just going to go through and melt the rest of this. Okay, and you want to give it a few seconds to kind of cool off, because if you rub your finger across, it will smudge, and also it is really hot. It will burn your finger, so be careful. One other thing to note, you can also check and you turn it on its side. If you see anything that looks powdery, then you need to reheat it. But you have to stamp it, sprinkle it, and heat it right away. You can't do a bunch of these and wait. And I'll tell you how I learned that lesson the hard way. Quite some time ago, when I was first stamping, I was doing stuff in stages, and I was probably doing something when Christian was going to bed or something like that. So what I ended up doing was I embossed a whole bunch of stuff and I set it on the side, and I was like, I'll just heat it all later. Well, guess what? Eventually the ink dried, and eventually all the powder that was on there just blew away. So you definitely can't save that for later. That's one of those things where you kind of have to do it at the time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab, this is a piece of smoky slate. It's cut to 4 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to grab, I can't remember if I use my basic gray. Let's see what this looks like. You could probably use either, but I'm going to grab my basic gray ink. And I'm just going to go ahead and randomly put some of these. It's probably a little bit darker. I probably use smoky slate, but you can use either. Just randomly put some of these all over. All right, that looks good. And then I'm going to come in with my memento, and I'm going to grab, since we're going to use this as a birthday card, I'm going to grab my leveled up stamp, And I'm going to just kind of fill this in between. Not really anywhere specific, just in kind of some random areas. Let's see. I think this is just a little bit crooked. I'm going to pick this back up again. Try that. That's better. I mean, you can do as much or as little as you want. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. It's your card. That looks good. And finally, I have to do one other thing, so let me not put that away yet. I'm going to put this on the side. I'm going to grab my Nintendo remote. I wonder often when they create these stamp sets, who is the person that got to pick the remotes? Because it has to be somebody that is just a little bit older. And I say that in the absolute best way, because lots of young people today probably don't even know what most of these controllers are unless they have parents who are a little bit older who are playing games. So that is going to go here. We're going to cut that out. Just going to set that on the side to dry. And I think that's it with the black. Now we're going to grab Granny Apple Green. And I just have to grab this really quickly because I want to wipe a couple of these off. So I want to reuse these blocks. There we go. So as I said before, it is really important that you clean the Versamark off of your stamp because it can degrade the stamp quality also if it's left on there. But most importantly, it just attracts a lot of dust. And you'll just end up with a bunch of like lint and bits stuck to your stamp. And that does not make for a good stamping experience. So you definitely don't want to do that. And now I'm just going to grab the Happy Birthday. And oh, there's some nice, we definitely have had a nice slow rain today, which is good. Just going to give that a test. Okay, and I just have a little scrap strip from when I've cut my cardstock down. There you go, that's good enough because we're going to trim it pretty close. So even if it's a little crooked, it won't matter. So that's just going to set on the side. Okay, so in the meantime, let me just wipe this one off and we'll be done. I'm going to show you a couple different things you can do just depending on what it is you want to do with your card. If you want to make it a wobbler, if you don't, I mean, it's completely up to you. There's also lots of other little things that you could add if you'd like. So don't feel like you have to do this. So with our little controllers, here's what we're going to do. So I have certain watercolor pencils. I really didn't use very many. I used white. I also used for the inside black and red, so I'm going to keep that out. So I have black and cherry cobbler. No, I want real red. And then these are both sets of watercolor pencils. So there's a number 1 and a number 2 set. I have Night of Navy. Believe it or not, it will show up better. Granny Apple Green. Pumpkin Pie. Oh, I do need, was it gray? Yeah, this was for the controller for the inside. Gray. I think that's it. Yes, and white. Okay. So to begin, what you're going to do is I just kind of went and did some highlighting. So I'm going to just take my white and fill in the inside of this controller. This is basically just to give this a little bit of definition. So I'm kind of just scribbling over it. I'm not doing anything really specific. You can see I'm not really being, I am going to fussy cut this out. So go a little bit over here like that. Okay. And then these, I actually did look at a controller. Okay. So this is what it looks like. So Granny Apple Green on the inside here. And then Granny Apple Green on this one little button. Then we have blue. I'm wondering, maybe I didn't use Night of Navy. I bet you I used Balmy Blue, because I think Night of Navy might be a little too dark. Yeah, Balmy Blue. Sorry about that. And then you're going to use Pumpkin Pie. And it's really not a lot of coloring. And then Real Red. Okay, so there's that. Then for this one, let me just open this up so I can see what I did. I used the gray. Now this one's not embossed. You could emboss this if you wanted to, but I didn't. I just kind of stuck with what I had. So we're using the gray. I did these two little remotes because this is what a Nintendo, I don't know, one of them might be gray and might be black with the buttons. I could have these buttons wrong, but I just did them. Al felt like doing them. And then I'm going to come in just with a little bit of black. Just go right here. Right here. Kind of just for a little bit of the shading. Okay, now for this, one other thing I did, just, you want to be gentle with this, you don't want to be too heavy-handed, is this is just a blender pen. So I'm going to just kind of soften out the color a little bit on these little shaded areas. I don't know if I did it in here or not, but we can just for the heck of it. So there's that. That's really it. It's not really anything terrific. And then when you're done, you just wipe it off. Then I'm going to come over here. I did this on the white, really. That was the only area that I kind of spread it out just to soften it. And remember, if you went outside the line, just no big deal, because we are going to trim that a little bit. And then that will, same thing, will dry off a little bit. One other thing, I think I went just a little bit here. Oops, that still has green on it. Let me not use that one because I didn't clean the tip off. That one is, I keep a lot of these kind of dead Wink of Stellas, which basically means they're empty, because I use them as paintbrushes. They're great for paintbrushes. All right, so that's it. All we have to do is trim those couple things up, and then we're ready to go. So I'm going to grab my paper snips. This one is super easy. And you could, if you wanted to, pop this up on dimensionals. I'm going to have to make another card. I'm actually going to have to give one of these to my brother. His birthday is this coming weekend. So, and then I'm going to have to make one for my other brother as well, because I know he'll love it. My middle brother, so I'm the oldest, the middle brother and I pretty much grew up playing Atari, 5200, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. And then my younger brother was more so really into PlayStation, Sega. I guess you could say this also could be Sega controller. Definitely looks more Xboxy, let's put it that way. But, excuse my stomach, I haven't eaten yet today, and apparently it is not happy. It just makes me wonder, like, it would be great if they came out with another set of this, but I guess this is probably a pretty good niche of if people do or don't play video games, maybe? Not really sure. All right, so there's that. Really simple. I mean, that only took me just a minute or so to cut those out. And I'm going to grab one more thing. I'm just going to trim this little thing up while I have it here. And I'm just trimming to the words. So I know I kind of stamped it crooked, but I'm just cutting. Oops. Straight across. Got just a little bit of an angle here. There we go. Okay. So clearly my next step after this is to eat lunch. So I don't have to listen to my stomach the whole rest of the day. Okay. So our base for this card is actually one of our new ink colors. This is Pebbled Path. So it's 4 1/4 by 8 1/2, score at, no, 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, score at 4 1/4. So we're going to fold that in half. Grab my bone folder. Give that a nice press. Then we're going to glue this down here. So I'm going to just bring in my liquid glue. Glue this down. We have lots of Christian's friends' birthday parties are coming. I guess summer is like the big time to party. So I'm going to put this on here before I do it so I can kind of go off the lines a little bit. So I'm going to put just a little bit of glue. And you could certainly put something different on the inside here if you wanted to, but I thought just this would be kind of cool. And then I don't know if this is or isn't new. I feel like I got one of these recently. Yes. So in case you haven't learned, I'm going to show you really quickly. We actually have new Stampin' Right markers. So they're kind of improved. I won't say they're new. They are just a slight bit smaller. You can tell that the caps are not quite as long. They have improved the brush end of the marker. So I'll just pull this off and show it to you. It is a little bit smaller. I'm sorry, it was smaller. It's a little bit bigger now, but they changed the design. It's actually a little bit nicer. But the best improvement of all, if you ask me, because I'm going to tell you what, these I hardly ever could get to write. This is what the new thing looks like. So it's more of like a felt tip marker. And let me just show you how much nicer it writes. First of all, it actually works, which is amazing on its own. But if you wanted to actually write something with it, you could do, I mean, you could even do like a little bit of lettering with this versus the old way. It is very thin, and I know a lot of people did like it, but personally, I don't think this was ever full of ink. Even refilling this, I always had issues with it. This is Parakeet Party, so it's fairly new, but a lot of my older markers, I think I wasn't going to in the beginning, but I think I am going to go through and actually replace them. I think I'm going to go through with just the color families of markers, and I think I'm going to just repurchase them because I've had most of them. I mean, for as long as I've been stamping, which for some of them has probably been like 15 years. All right, so I'm gonna put that on the inside. So this was 4 by 5 1/4, in case I didn't mention that earlier. We added this to the inside. You could totally stamp something in here if you wanted to. Now I am going to put this on with a little piece of a foam strip. Just wanna make sure I have one long enough. Oopsie, hold on. Probably should have cut it off ahead of time, but so just like so, I'm going to put that on. But one other thing I wanted to tell you before you do that. In order to get this, so if you want this to stay, what I did was I just put my glue on kind of in like a random pattern, kind of decided where I wanted to put this. And I'm just going to use the end of this one here. I put this on with glue. Now I'm letting that sit there for a minute. You don't really need a ton of glue. You really, really don't. But you kind of almost need it to start to tack up a little bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm at the end of my roll. I don't think I've ever actually used an entire roll of this. One other thing you can do that'll make this a little bit easier is you can actually unwind your baker's twine because it's 3. So I'm going to just pull one of these all the way off. And it actually will stick a little bit better. It won't look quite as fat, but you'll be able to see the difference. This one was a full strength, but when we did it at Card Club, I was telling the ladies, sometimes it's easier to kind of do it with a thinner piece. And then the other thing is if you run this between your fingers, just the heat of your fingers will straighten it out so it doesn't really have a curl anymore, which just makes it a little bit easier to put down. So we're going to just kind of follow the line of our glue. This will get your fingers a little gluey, so if this is not something that you're into, you can totally just skip this portion, and you could do it with the Stampin' Right marker. But right there, and we'll just trim this little extra bit off. I mean, you could completely let it go up the card. Actually, for this one, let me see. What I might do is have this one go underneath of the controller just a little bit because, or not the controller, our happy birthday. I'm going to bring this up just a little bit up here. We'll just change it up for this second one. All right, now, so I do have a little bit sticky fingers. I'm going to just grab my snips and just, oops, trim that off. Okay, so there's that. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to just grab this, usually snip right on there, pull that off, make sure we don't have any hanging over. And I'm going to just put this right up here. Now, I kind of liked when this part was frayed because it almost slightly mimics the plug, but if not, you know, it's up to you. You can certainly change it. This part down here is going to be covered. You want to make sure this is fully dry. So I'm going to put it on now, but if you're making this at home, what I would highly advise is that you let this, set this aside, let it dry, and then you come back and put this afterwards. But since we're on video, I'm going to pull it off for you. So I'm pulling, pardon me, going to pull the little loop part off. So this is the part that's technically like the more sturdy end, and I'm going to just press this, oops, press this right down in the center. Okay, and then you're going to just remove the backing. Come on, remove the backing, And you're going to just press. So I kind of close the whole thing and press it down. Just hold it for a second. And then when you lift it up, because you don't want it to stick to the glue. And you can see, that's it, little wobbler. So super, super fun. Let me know, do you like the thicker or the thinner cord better? I think they're both kind of equally cute. The thinner one is definitely simpler to work with if that's your first time doing it. However, maybe you might not think it's so easy to pull the strands apart. But if that is the case, so I just have this one other one left here. All I have to do is pull this apart. Here, I have very sticky fingers. Pull this apart, and then you can actually get 3 cards out of just one piece that I had left over. So that's also kind of a nice bonus. So I'm definitely going to have to clean my fingers before I finish adhering that. But this is just another piece that you have. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this card today. I'm trying to move this out without it's sticking to my fingers and not working well. Let me know if this is some kind of a card that you think that you would try. Do you have any nieces, nephews, grandkids, sons, daughters, grown sons or daughters that you think would love this card? I think it is really, really fun. Definitely is a way to bring some fun to someone's birthday. And also, let me just move this to the side. You could also use this, congratulations, just as like an achieving card, like something just as a thinking of you and we love you kind of card. When it feels like game over, always choose to play again. I mean, I think this also has some really nice inspiration. These are definitely the hearts from the Nintendo, the Mario hearts, because when you use those, you could level yourself up, which is pretty cute. But anyway, I hope you guys like this card. If you have any other ideas for it, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe. You just click the red subscribe button and make sure while you're there, you turn on the bell for notifications. That way, when I create a new video, it will let you know that one has been posted. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our new markers. There are really cool tips to them. I mean, you could definitely do a lot more with these. These are probably really much handier too if you are a scrapbooker or you do journaling, because you can actually use them and you can see what you do with them. And thank you so very much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for stopping by.